We know that the podcast listening experience matters. We also know the big podcast apps don't seem to share that sentiment. It's time for working podcasters like you and me to do something intentional about it. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. When I go to a new restaurant, I almost always ask my server for their recommendation rather than reading the entire menu. Now, most of the time, I get one of three answers. First one, everything is good. Not helpful. But why would you put not good things on the menu? I understand that. Not helpful. Or they will say, I don't eat X, whether that's meat or pasta or carbs or green things. Also not very helpful. There's an entire section of the menu you're not helping me with. Or the third answer is try the salmon or whatever else. Definitely, that's the one. Now, the only right answer out of those three clearly is the last one. This is the part where you say, great, Evo, now we understand your eating habits. What does this have to do with podcasting? Allow me to elucidate that for you. All right, look. I know that you're smart enough to put your podcast episodes everywhere someone might want to listen. We do that, right? Yes, that includes Spotify, even if you don't care for Spotify's politics and privacy issues. I get it, but people listen over there. That also includes YouTube, because we've been told a ton of podcast discovery, maybe not listening, but a lot of podcast discovery happens on YouTube. We need to be there as well. But you don't have to be agnostic, like that server, when it comes to what app you prefer, you recommend people utilize to enjoy your show. Just like that server above, I think you, as a podcaster, should have an opinion on which app someone should use, which are the best ones. Because I think really that regime change begins at home, to borrow a phrase. Look, Apple continues to fumble the ball with Apple Podcasts. And reports are that the big bet they're making on subscriptions, paid for subscriptions, is causing significantly more work for a lot of podcasters than many podcasters want. If you're making money with Apple Podcast subscriptions, good on you. But if you're not, Spotify continues to go down the exclusivity route, locking up creators, locking up podcasts, and being very, Spotify about this whole thing, much as many people did fear what happened is exactly what is happening with Spotify. Amazon was the big hope for some, me particularly. I was kind of thinking they might be able to really do one more big presence into podcasting, but as last reports I read, Amazon's really only in this to get their share of the advertising revenue. So I don't know how much they're going to be forwarding podcasting all over. And yet we podcasters continue to pimp the big players, at least the first two I mentioned. And we do that largely in part because we're told, that's where people are most likely going to be listening to your show. But that's a false assumption. As I've talked about before, and as you've read before, auto downloads are skewing the numbers that you and I see, causing us to confuse downloads with actual listens. So, let's put our minds back into put our bodies into the shoes, if you will, of that mythical restaurant server once again. Only we are the server. We are the waiter, the waitress, the person taking the order, whatever you want to call us. That's our job. We're the podcaster. And even though the listener didn't say it exclusively or explicitly, they're asking us for a recommendation. We're the ones that need to provide a recommendation to people. So here's your homework. Here's my homework. And that is find a new listening app that you can proudly recommend. If you're already using one of the big apps, I'm suggesting you move away from them. It took me a long time to move away. My argument in my brain was, well, most people listen on this, so I need to understand that experience. And I now realize that's wrong. I realize that's wrong. There's not a lot we can do about that. So what I've decided to do is shift away, break the dependency on the Big Purple app and go to something else. And that's what I want you to do as well. Keep in mind, you and I are going to continue to make our podcast available on every single platform. That is super key and important. But what I want you to do this weekend is the same thing I'm going to do this weekend, is spend time trying out some new podcast listening apps. We're going to start there. My focus is going to be on the new apps available at newpodcastapps.com. That's where all of the new and fresh and wild thinking around podcasting and how we can extend podcasting is taking place. Super smart people who are looking to advance podcasting. That's where I'm focusing my efforts. You might do something else, but I would suggest that you resist the temptation while you're doing your search and when you start finding things. Resist the temptation to look for an app that does exactly what your current listening app does today. Because that's trying to find a replacement for what's happening right now, where you might be missing some of the other cool things that are happening. Now take it from me, I've got some very strict requirements on what I expect apps to do, and none of them really do it very well. My old process was wait, gripe about it, and hope they would eventually get better, but that's not going to happen. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is find an app that I think I can work with, and I'm going to make my case with and chat up the developers to see if I can get the app to improve. I'm not doing that because I have some special powers. I'm a user. I'm going to be using it. I want you to use it, and I want you to find out where the flaws are in the process and figure out what's going to work. We've got to be open to trying new things, trying a different way to do things. I think this is an important step for us to take to get away from the bigs to really get back into what it means to listen to our show and what kind of experience we can give. And are we recommending the things that will give them the best experience, or are we saying, listen wherever you get your podcasts? I really do think this regime change to get people to shift begins with us, the power users, the creators. Look, if we're serious about making podcasting better, I think we need to at least have an opinion on what makes for a great listening experience. And listen to wherever you want isn't that opinion we need. We need an opinion. We need to be able to proudly share and recommend that opinion. Of course, I'll have more information about, now what, Eva? We found the thing. What am I supposed to do? Well, we'll talk more about that in future episodes. But right now, go find a new app. Spend the next 3 days seeing if you can find a new app. Now, if you think that's a good idea and you want to return some of the value I just gave to you, then please go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and buy me a coffee. Or better yet, use one of those new fancy, newfangled Satoshi-powered apps. What's a Satoshi-powered app, you might say? Well, they're out there, and that's what I'm going to be playing with this weekend. And if you've got one right now, give me a boost. Boost! And with that, I shall be back on Monday with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers!